Hi guys, welcome to the latest podcast of YarninBlak. Today I've got a mate on, Paul. I'll introduce you to Paul in a second. But first I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that I'm currently calling in from. I'm here on the beautiful lands of the Wiradjuri people in Melbourne Q, and I want to pay respect to their elders past, present, and our future leaders, our young people that are going to be our future leaders in the future. So before we do anything else, I better introduce you to our guest today. Paul Brant, how are you?
Great. Yourself?
I'm fine. For people that don't know who you are, where you're from?
Paul Brant, I've worked in the recruitment HR field for 42 years now. That's why I've got no hair. My people are Wiradjuri and Ngunnawal, and I guess I've had the opportunity to work at all segments: government, private, community, and now I'm the Aboriginal manager of employment for TAFE New South Wales, which I've been doing for the last 4 years.
Yeah. Question: have we increased Indigenous employment in organisations?
Yes, but we can only do it when we've got Aboriginal people at the forefront. I'm a strong believer that you need Aboriginal voices from the very get-go. I've been really fortunate in the places that I've worked in my career, the ABC, Australian Hearing, that we were really smart to ensure that Aboriginal voices played a big role in the evolution. Without our voices at the table in the discussions, it's other people setting the journey for us. And let's face it, history has shown that just doesn't work. It really doesn't work. There is enough incredible, skilled Aboriginal people to be at the table to be able to make progressive change. Change has to be real as well. I've seen organisations who do this boom and bust, and I want to create opportunities for careers, not just jobs, but for people to come to a place like TAFE and develop their skills so they can develop a career. And whether that means they stay at TAFE in the long term or move on somewhere else, that's the big part of what we have to do as Aboriginal people, I feel.
Yeah. On a personal level, just going back in time, where did you grow up? Where did you go to school?
Well, I started my whole life journey. I was born at Crown Street Women's Hospital right in the centre of Sydney, but my early days, we went out to Mount Druitt in Western Sydney. It was a housing emission, a new housing emission area. We were in Petersham in central Sydney, and started our lives out there. The great thing for me was a lot of the family had moved out as well, so I had some really great support elements, and I always felt culturally enriched that being Aboriginal was a badge of pride, and that was, I guess, during a time where, some of my cousins who lived in other areas of Sydney didn't have that same, those same experiences. So I felt really, really lucky. And people hear of areas like Mount Druitt and they cringe, but I really felt lucky that I had that opportunity, AJ, to have that sense of belonging and that connectedness. And with such a large Aboriginal population out there as well, it made me really hungry for knowing more and more about our people and our journey, and how to how to be on the front foot instead of always looking backwards. We need to also look forward. So, I felt really, really lucky to have that experience in my, up till about 13 to grow up in a place like Mount Druitt.
Yeah. And did you end up finishing year 12?
Yeah, so I was the first person in my family to do so, and that was anyone who sees what I put on LinkedIn, my nan was my guide to everything. She didn't, she led by command. There was no democracy. When nan told you something, you just did it. And she said to me, you're going to go through to year 12. You're going to be in a job where you're paid to talk. Now, she said some of this at times when I was growing up. I had a profound stutter. My communication skills weren't great because when you have a profound stutter, you predominantly go into yourself and stay very quiet. Yeah. And I remember thinking at about 7 or 8 years of age, what is this lady talking about? I'm not going to be in a job where I'm paid to talk. And over the years, I loved the confidence that she gave me to sort of take on things that I would not have necessarily have seen. In fact, my job at the ABC, my nan was an avid listener and lover of the ABC, and she invited me over for lunch, and she pulled out this job, and she said, "Here's a job you should apply for." And at that time, I was a state manager with a private recruitment firm, earning really good money. I was like, ABC, what do I want to work there for? And by the end of that lunch, here I am starting to apply for a job that I'm thinking, why am I applying for this? It was one of the best things that I'd ever done because, you know, being the national broadcaster and the responsibility of such a role really broadened my my cultural knowledge, but also just showed me the depth and the skills and the experience that Aboriginal people have across so many different areas. So it's funny that someone who's been involved in recruitment, my best career decision was made by my old nan, who pushed me into it. And I would not have applied for the job. I would not have seen it as something that was a viable thing. Yet I learned so much and had that great opportunity to travel all around Australia and visit communities that I had never known of, and you know, I learned so much. So many different elders across the country who give you the time of day, and it opens up doors when you work for, you know, a place like the national broadcaster, the ABC, and that brand name gave me so many different opportunities, and to meet the incredible staff, the Aboriginal staff across the ABC, right across the country, was absolutely amazing. So so there was I spent 11 years there. Previous to my appointment, no one else had lasted 2 years in that particular job. So it was probably just meant, it was just the right time, right place, right time, and enjoyed it immensely. And people that I worked with then are still they're part of my family now. They're people that are, you know, I really regard as near and dear to me, and we're still in, you know, close contact even after all these years gone by.
Yeah. So when you started at the ABC, how many Aboriginal staff were there, and how many were there over the 7 years?
We nearly doubled Aboriginal employment in the 11 years that I was there.
That's good.
But what we did is, as I said, I felt that there was a boom and bust. They had a lot of programs that was about, are we going to provide a 6-month opportunity? And it's like, okay, but after the 6 months, what are we going to do? And it's like, oh, well, we just thought if we provided the opportunity, that's enough. I think employers have to look long term. And if you're going to invest in people, look at how the investment pays off for you as an employer. So I looked at the longer term, that we should be providing career opportunities and career jobs, and that there needs to be ongoing employment at the outset. And that was a big change for the organisation. So our progression initially, it seemed like we were going backwards initially, but I knew that it was the right path. I had a lot of staff across the country who would support that development. And also, media is a very complicated industry. So at the time, I felt like over 11 years to double it wasn't a great outcome. But when I look back and you think about that, you know, that cameramen and journalists and editors and producers and all the different elements that go into making up a place like the ABC, to be able to double our numbers over that time and provide real opportunity, I think was great. And I also got to learn a lot about production and, you know, what took place on a shoot, what was involved. I really wanted to understand the type of jobs that we were promoting, so I could then have a better sense of who the right people are to come into the organisation as well. I still think as a workforce, that Aboriginal workforce in the ABC was world class. I mean, they had world class Aboriginal cameramen who would, the best in their field, whether that be in sports or news reporting or, so many different elements. And really what we were able to do is to use our staff as ambassadors. We'd do careers days. Every 2 years, we'd have a conference and go all around Australia. We'd do careers days, and I'd use the skills of our staff to talk to young ones about what being a cameraman was, what being a journalist was, and that's a really good way to plant a seed that people can see that there's people doing that type of role and can see an opportunity for themselves to do that as well. Really taught me so much, and taught me about how our best tools are the staff that we have. Our best opportunity to get the word out is to use people who are currently doing those type of roles and talk about how they got started and what they did, and hopefully that then takes away some of the fear factor of people when they're when they're applying for a job like that as well. So yeah, it was really it was really great. I felt really lucky. I had really great HR support. I had a really great manager. Her name was Chrissy Tucker, who virtually after the first 6 months just said to me, "Look, I'm just going to get out of your way and let you do what you need to do."
Yeah.
How many times in a career do you get that where someone just goes, "Okay, we're just going to let you do what you need to do, and we're going to support you." We got extra funding, and we got to hold conferences and got to do a lot of stuff that previously they probably would not have looked at as an opportunity or seen a return on investment. But we know how important it is for us to connect culturally, and those days and those opportunities, I think, really were part of the increased employment opportunities and direction. And I look at where the ABC is now, and I feel really proud that I played my part, but also that the organisation learned so much that they will. It's not about one person. It's more about how an organisation actually evolves and where they are now. And it's really nice to see that the ABC has held its own and continued that employment and that opportunity for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people throughout the organisation as well.
Yeah. And while you were there, the ABC won a diversity award, I remember, at the time.
Yeah, we were really lucky. We won quite a couple. We did we were looking at back then it was called cultural awareness, and we looked at cultural competency. One of the things that I really thought, wow, imagine if we could get into these archives. That the archives of the ABC were absolutely incredible. I mean, there was great footage on there from everything from Wave Hill to the referendum to the viewpoints of White Australia and the White Australia policy. So I was really lucky. We got in a really great cultural competency provider called Echidna, and we developed this online resources primarily using probably about 80% of the content was from the ABC archives. And then the other part of the content was using our staff and basically putting them in a Q&A situation where they were interviewing each other and talking about experiences. And it was funny because to deliver something nationally, even back then and before COVID, we didn't have all these great things where we could talk to people over a screen. But to be able to have an online resource that all staff could actually do, was fantastic. The other thing we did with that is we didn't make it mandatory, because I always worry, AJ, when we talk about mandatory training, people think, oh, it must be so bad they're forcing me to do it. Yeah. So we made it optional, and we ended up with 89% of all staff at the ABC did that program, and people were astounded. But I knew that once somebody clicked on, the quality and the investment that we made in that people would feel a sense of pride, both in terms of our evolution as an organisation with Aboriginal staff, but also the national broadcaster and the footage that we had was just obscene. And I remember going back to the archivist there and asking for footage, and virtually every time they said, "Oh, you've got a choice. So we've got this, we've got this, we've got that." And you'd sit there and I just go, wow, how amazing is some of this stuff that we've got. And it opened it up then that that staff of the ABC got to see stuff that they may not have necessarily have seen. So yes, I was really, I was never really about awards, but it was just a nice recognition that we'd done something that, especially way back in those times, was something that wasn't really the done thing, but got the message across in a really effective way. So no ABC staff member, regardless of what location they were in, missed out, because you can't go to every single branch and every single, every single enclave of the ABC with all the different branches they've got. But we went to every state and territory. We delivered the training to the national teams and the leadership group. So it was great to see the investment, both in terms of time and money, pay off. And I think for the ABC to see a different way of seeing that cultural element and the cultural journey as well.
Yeah, because I met you at one of the awards ceremonies.
Yeah, that was gee whiz, that's going back some ways, right?
Yes.
It was a long time ago, but it was great to go down to Melbourne and to also, we didn't get the opportunity a lot in those days to be able to mix with people in other organizations. You become really obsessed in the house, and and to see what other people were doing. I think sharing of information and celebrating the successes is really important. And it's something I think sometimes as Aboriginal people we don't do very well, where we can look at all our inefficiencies and tell ourselves what we need to do better. But then when we get a rap or an accolade, we can sometimes find that really hard to do personally and professionally. And that award happened without my knowledge, because I would have said no. But then I realized the worth of what those awards were about, and it was just a real recognition for the leadership we'd shown across the organization to bring cultural competency to another level, and to see the footage, and what that was all about. History came to life, I guess, with that product.
Yeah. Because I remember meeting you, because when you returned from picking up your award, there was someone sitting in your seat all ready to have a yarn with you.
Yeah, no, it was, I was like, what do they want to talk to me for? And I guess the thing, when you're working at the ABC, and I'm in the back house, support area. So, you get in the lift and there'd be people like Andrew Denton and all these different celebrities, and you think, it's not about me, but again, I was really lucky. I mean, even the day I left the ABC, I had Aboriginal staff members travel from all over Australia and give me a guard of honour as I walked out, and I teared up. I was like, wow, like what a nice way after 11 years, and some are very, very challenging situations and occasions. But I think the other part in that is, a lot of people said to me, well, why did you leave? But we all have to know what our time is in a job. I never wanted to sit in a job where I was just straddling the job and just letting it happen. And so for me, it was like, okay, and I just got that sense. We ran our conferences every 2 years, and I said at the last conference, this is my last conference. And people said, have you got another job? I said, no, but I know I've given everything I possibly can. And that's good, because it gives someone else then the opportunity to come in and to use your blueprint, but to be able to take it to another level again. I think that can sometimes be the hardest thing, that people have to know what their time is in a particular role, and then make the decision when it's time to go. And sometimes not to know the future, but to know that by holding on to the past, you're preventing a real future, both for yourself, but also for the organisation as well. And I what I've seen the ABC doing since my time out of the place, really fills me with pride that all that continued evolution and what they've done over the 12 or 13 years that I haven't been there. Yeah, it still gives me that sense of pride.
Yeah. So from there, you went into you into the hearing.
Yeah, look, I was really, really lucky. The managing director at Hearing Australia gave me a call and said, "Look, we're really keen to set up employment for Aboriginal people, Australian hearing, and through the work that they do, more than 30% of the clientele at that time were Aboriginal." And I remember my first discussion. I sat down and, we're in this swanky hotel and I was thinking, gee, this is nice. Like, and I'm not having to pay. This is all great. And I said to him, how many Aboriginal staff do you have? And he said, 6. And I thought, oh, 6 at head office. And he said, no, 6 in total. And that was at about, I think it was about 18 or 1900 staff. And I went, wow. And he said to me, if you come to this role, we will be open to anything, because part of my agenda and part of the legacy I want to leave is that we completely change what we've done in the Aboriginal space. And we've always focused on our failures, which, you hear that old story. You would have heard it a lot of times too, AJ. Oh, we hired an Aboriginal person once, but it just didn't work out.
Yeah.
What, like white people come in and they all work out? Like it's so I felt really lucky. And then there was an incredible ear, nose and throat specialist, one of the best in the world. Dr. Kelvin Kong was on the board, and Kelvin Kong would contact me every 6 weeks. We'd have a yarn. He'd make sure at board level I had some incredible support. And then the chair of the board, Dr. Ray Cooper, who's now at Sydney University, she was just absolutely marvellous. And then one of the other great people was Michael Knight, who basically he was the head person for the Olympics here in Sydney. He made that work when it didn't look workable, and he was just such an inspirational person in regards to how we went about things. So I was really lucky to have a board that was completely, completely ensconced. I'd report to them every single month. My managing director, was across everything. And so it was good because it made the responsibility not on me, but on the whole organisation. And after 2 months, my managing director calls me and he says, I want you to do a different job. And I was like, what? I thought I've been doing a great job. What do you mean? He wants me to do? And he said, I want you to take over all recruitment. And I went, wow, and I thought that was a really smart thing to do, because what I was applying from an Aboriginal perspective was best practice in recruitment in total. Yeah. The mainstream team were actually floundering at that time. So I loved that we used Aboriginal expertise and applied it across the board, so people could, rather than see it as an Aboriginal thing, they could see it as a best practice thing. And they could see that having an Aboriginal person lead a national recruitment objective made a lot of sense. Ensured that we were across everything we needed to do. We got involved in reconciliation action plans. I think for me, a reconciliation action plan is a really good template when you're starting. But as you get better at it, I think you should be able to then diversify and specialise what you do with a RAP itself. But so yeah, it was really great to have that opportunity and spend 8.5 years there. I learned so much again about hearing. We were able to have the amazing Troy Casadale as our hearing ambassador for about 5 years. I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to go with Troy on outreach visits into communities all around Australia, and see young kids and families come in for hearing checks where they wouldn't have necessarily come in, but because Troy's there and singing a few songs, we'd get the crowds in. Also very sad because you see the hearing loss that's in our communities and the amount of work that needs to be done. But I tell you, first Australian hearing, then they turned into Hearing Australia. World class. The services they offered to the public, the services they offered to Aboriginal people, was absolutely incredible. And I had some really great general managers who managed regions of Australia. A lady by the name of Di Alcock, who managed northern New South Wales. They had 40% of their clients were Aboriginal, and she came to me and said, I have 3 Aboriginal staff and I want to change that. We went from that region having 3 Aboriginal staff to 7.5% of staff in that region being Aboriginal in the time that I left. And the great thing about that is it exposed the organisation to, we had centre managers who were Aboriginal. They were running hearing centres. We had, people who worked in the sales and marketing area. We had, so all this different collective of people, but it's because we did it differently. And it's because we had champions like Di who could see the potential that the more Aboriginal people we have on board, the more Aboriginal people will use our services. And I think that's really business smart to be able to go, more Aboriginal people in the organisation means more Aboriginal people will use the organisation. And having one champion meant that all the other general managers now had somebody who led the way. And that really, changed the whole organisation. So when I left the organisation, 4.5% of staff nationally were Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander. And that's something I was really, really proud of, because we didn't, it took some time, and again, it took some growth, but it just took a different mindset to look at, how we grow and how we develop, Aboriginal people in such an important health element, and the work that we can do in communities. We know that when we're in community, we can do and say stuff that that non-Aboriginal people can't. So that really opened up a lot of doors and a lot of opportunities as well.
Yeah. Question, we talk a bit about cultural safety in workplaces. What does cultural safety look like for you?
It's an interesting question, isn't it? Because it has all different connotations. But to me, I go back to the learnings of my nan and my elders, is that cultural safety is that I can be me without hesitation. I can say what I think, what I feel, with a sense of safety. Now, I won't say that it's always been that way, and I will say that there's times where you feel, is the organisation actually ready for that? But part of the evolution process isn't for us to evolve. It's for general Australia to evolve and to hear what we're saying in a different way, not in an attacking way, but to hear it in a way that gives them a mindset into, into who we are. There was something that happened at the ABC where I was in on a meeting and all these people are talking about Aboriginal issues. And I said to the head of HR, this is really weird. I'm the only Aboriginal person. There's 28 people in this room and we're talking about Aboriginal issues. And he said, I don't understand I don't understand. Isn't it important that we're doing that? And I went, yeah, it is. Anyway, the next land council meeting that the Metro Land Council had, Uncle Alan Madden was the fellow running things at that time. And so I took the head of HR, Colin Palmer, to a land council meeting. And because I thought the only way you'll understand is to spend a day in my shoes. So he's sitting there in the land council meeting. It's like, I felt so isolated. I felt so, okay, that's my world every day, right? I'm sitting listening to people with all the right intentions, but it's hard to connect because they don't have the lived experience. They don't have, sometimes we have to put people in a position where the only way they can learn is to feel what it is that we're saying. And, I spoke to Uncle Alan before that to make sure it was okay. But I know for Colin, it was like, as we're coming back in the taxi, it was like, I'm really sorry. I never, ever understood. When you're saying it, I always just felt like, but isn't this important that we're coming to the table? Isn't this important that we're listening? And and that allowed the real development of proper staff networks. The ABC now calls it the Bonner Committee after the incredible Uncle Neville Bonner, who was the first Aboriginal person on the board of the ABC. So Aboriginal voices were more, there was a better collective and a better understanding of voices. But we still have this, you know, when you're in an identified job, there is a cultural load you have to carry. And it generally means, for, you know, people wear out because, you know, my job doesn't finish when I walk out the doors here this afternoon and go home. Aboriginality is with you 24/7, right? So I can be somewhere and someone can talk to me about something at TAFE, you know, on a Sunday afternoon and, you know, so I'm always wary of that. And I know with my team, with the incredible work that they do carry a cultural load that's very hard for non-Aboriginal people to understand, because every single person we interact with, we want to make a difference. Every single outcome that we make, it's not just about the number and about the increasing of Aboriginal employment. It's about the, you know, the connection that we have with people and communities as well. And, you know, I hope we get to an Australia where cultural load is actually, you know, factored into a role, because it might then ensure that the longevity of such roles, you know, is enhanced. You know, I was really lucky to start in the old Commonwealth Employment Service and have really great mentors 40 or plus years ago. But I look now and see the opportunities for Aboriginal people to come into areas like HR is very limited.
Yeah.
And we need to make sure that we open up those pipelines and give people the opportunity, because, you know, if you look back then at me, you know, I was probably more likely to be a bouncer or to be a security guard or to be, you know, to have those opportunities to work in an organisation and learn the skills of the trade in a place like the old Commonwealth Employment Service was incredible. I had really great mentors, and, you know, within 3 years I became a manager, and I was just, I was like, wow, how is this happening? But we have, as Aboriginal people, natural skill sets and abilities that give us those opportunities. And, you know, I came from a large Aboriginal family, like most of us do. You know, my nan had 140 plus grandchildren, and I always fought for supremacy with these, you know, with my cousins and sisters, and but you were virtually in a large family like that, playing leadership roles in different ways as you were growing up. Yeah. So when you then apply it to the workforce, you know, the same principles and attitudes apply. It's funny, I think in time what I've hoped that I've been able to do is to teach people that I don't need you to teach me how to lead. I need you to see that leadership is multifaceted, and it has different opportunities and different ways of being able to work. But again, I was really lucky. My nan always put me in, you know, culturally, when it came to sorry business and things like that, I was always put in leadership roles in the family. So, you know, when there was a passing, there was a lot of work that I had to do culturally. And, you know, at the time it was very challenging and perplexing, but it really prepared me for everything that's come since in the, you know, in the workforce. And, you know, when we can see it that way, I think we make sure that our Aboriginality and our lived experience is more valued and seen by people as what it really is that, you know, we've lived through, we're living in different worlds every single day, and we have to sometimes step through that to make it work.
Yeah, thanks. Your nan, is she still around, or
no? But she lived to 87, and she was just she was a powerhouse. You know, I watched my nan. Unfortunately, my mum passed away when she was 50. My nan had a lot of loss in her life, but she was always there for everybody else. And I never forget this, because she said to me, you know, we've done all this stuff for my mum's passing, and my nan's asking me if I'm okay, and I'm thinking she just lost her daughter, and here she is worrying about me. Now I have a son now, and I think if something happened to my son, I wouldn't give a crap about anybody else. I'd be in total devastation. You know, you'd never expect to outlive your kids. And here's my nan worried about everybody else. Her abilities to rise above things and to lead. She moved out to the Shire in her 50s and said there's not enough services for Aboriginal people in the Sutherland Shire. So she created an Aboriginal corporation called Curranella. Just decided, well, we need this, so I'm going to create it. I'm going to go talk to council. I'm going to go. And last year they celebrated 30 years in operation. And I remember at the time thinking, this, how does she think she's going to get this off the ground? Lo and behold, 3 years later, here I am at the unveiling of this service called Curranella. And I was really proud, AJ. The building is in my nan's name, Elizabeth House, named after my nana, whose name was Elizabeth. So to see that name will forevermore rest on that organisation for the work that she did to create it was was so awesome. It's so. I think leadership and cultural responsibility never leaves you. But to see my nan still strong in her 80s was an incredible thing. She always, to me, inspired me to think how awesome the skills and abilities she gave me was. When you're younger, you sometimes don't understand it, and sometimes I used to think, oh, gee, I wish you just let me do what I need to do. But I tell you, it's been nearly 10 years since she's passed, and I miss her guidance and her wisdom in regards to just sometimes there'd be things I asked for advice, and she'd say, "I'll call you back when I've got an answer." Now, Western culture, everything's instant, right? You ask for it and you get an answer. There was one particular thing I asked for my nana for advice, and she called me back 3 days later, and I said, "Nan, why did you wait 3 days?" She said, "Do you want the right answer, or did you want a Kodak answer?" And I went, "A Kodak answer." She goes, "Yeah, an instant answer. Do you want an instant answer or the right answer?" And gee whiz, it takes some courage to wait and to think something out and to really to map it out in your mind before you actually share it. And I know that with my son now, that when he asks me things, I say to him, I don't have the answer right now. Give me some time. And he's learned that now, which is good, because instant answers can often make the situation worse, not better. And gee, that was a rich thing she taught me to. Sometimes you have to wait for the right answer, right? It's not going to be just instantly there.
Yeah. A question I've got goes back to when you were younger, like a lot younger, when you're at school. But how much Aboriginal issues were you taught at school, and why your son was going to school? Had it changed, and do you think it has changed at all?
Yeah. I did I was doing Australian history, and I did my paper on Pemulwuy, this incredible warrior who totally outsmarted the British and, caused so much angst for them all across Sydney, and, made them think that there was thousands of Aboriginal troops because he was a real strategist. So I hand this paper in, and the Australian history teacher gave me 0. And she said, I'm really sorry, but I don't know who this person is, so I can't mark it. And to me, Australian history started at this point in time. I was just like, oh my God. I go home, discuss with my mum, and then I was talking to my nan, and then my pop says, "I'll come into the school with you." And wow, my nan was always the force of nature, but to see my pop in full flight and say how reprehensible it was that we talk about Australian history, but we've discounted a group of people who've been here, 60,000 years. All I was worried about is I just, I hope they give me an 80 or an A or a B or a, but he really set the cut amongst the pigeons in regards to Australian history. Can't be called Australian history if we're completely discounting our people. Then I look with my son, when the apology happened, my son was in second form at school, and the school for the whole day had closed down. They'd invited elders, they'd invited local performers. They made a whole event over the apology, and they ensured that it was ensconced in every student's journey. So to see that happen in that period of time over, I guess, a 20, 30-year radius was absolutely amazing. Then the other part in that is my son was doing Aboriginal studies, and I knew that he thought, because I'm a black fella, I'm going to ace the class. And at the end of the year, he got beat. He got beat by 3 other people. And I said, they've taken their studies more. You take it as a given. These people have actually researched, and they've actually studied, and they've actually gone out there and learned more. You have to understand there's so much more for you to learn. And, my nan did something really important with my son. The family, as my mum was actually born in Cobar, and we took my nan back out there in her later years, and we're driving along, in the middle of nowhere in virtually desert, and my nan's said, pull the car over, and we pulled the car over, and she's got my young lad out, and she said, come over here. And then she just picked up sand and put it in his hand and said, look at all that sand. This is what you know. What's in your hand is what you know about Aboriginal culture. What you have to know is all that.
Yeah.
I got back in the car, and, that bravado of a teenager had completely gone. He just sat there like, oh, crap. How much more have I got to actually learn? So it was a really visual way that she was able to do that, and for him to sort of understand. I think it's an honour for us to be Aboriginal, and we're holders of the world's oldest surviving culture, but we should never take it for granted. And I think that's what he did, is he took it for granted. Since then, he's never done that again, and he's really, I watched him progress. He's in his 30s now, so he's a man. But I love his cultural integrity of what he does as an Aboriginal person, and how that's always primary to him, and how he educates people that come into his life about what being Aboriginal is as well.
Yeah. I'm just watching the time, so I've got 2 final questions. And one question I ask every guest is, if I could give you a magic wand and $1 quillion, and said that you could change something in Aboriginal affairs, what would you do? Where would you start?
The political system. I said when I was growing up, I wanted to be Australia's first Aboriginal Prime Minister, and I look now in my 50s, and it won't happen in my lifetime. I talked earlier about how you need Aboriginal people at the table, and there's some incredible people like Melandiri McCarthy and Linda Burney beforehand, but they're a minority point. And I watched the damage that the debates had last year about including the inclusion element, and all the damage that had been done about our inclusion in the Constitution. I think if we had effective Aboriginal leadership at the very top, it could have been a very different thing. One of the greatest occasions in my life was watching Barack Obama get elected. And AJ, I was working at the ABC, and I was at a Democrat party, and I cried, because I was like, wow, the most powerful man in the world is a black man. Like, wow. And then I thought about our country and thought how much more work we've got to do until somebody can see that it's a viable proposition for an Aboriginal person to lead from a mainstream perspective. I still think we're so far away from that. There's definitely people with the skills and abilities and the desire to be able to do that, but our political system doesn't lend itself, to that. So, if I could change that and have a stronger emphasis on Aboriginal leadership, and then for the rest of Australia to see, yes, we're Aboriginal, but we also, I know Aboriginal economists. You can be Aboriginal and still be great at what you do and what you have learned as a profession. Melandiri McCarthy was an incredible journalist and did so much great work at the ABC, and the work she's doing now in cabinet is fantastic. But we need more Melandiri McCarthys. We need more Aboriginal people at the leadership perspective. And then I think the timing of things like that that happened last year wouldn't have happened, because it was patently clear to me as an Aboriginal person we were going to lose this vote and it was going to cause us damage. The intention might have been right, but the way that it was put in place was made it very difficult for us as Aboriginal people. So I think if you have a political system that is really inclusive, then you provide a different avenue of opportunity for people.
Yeah, I like that. My last question is, what would you like people to walk away with from our yarn this morning?
With the sense of belief, look, over the 4 years that I've worked here at TAFE, we've doubled our Aboriginal employment numbers. We haven't done that through boom or bust. We've done that because it's a necessity. Our campuses through TAFE New South Wales have to mirror our communities, and we've got some huge communities from New South Wales. Places like Dubbo, 18% of the Aboriginal, 18% of the population is Aboriginal in the Dubbo space. Now, when I came to TAFE, 4% of our staff in Dubbo were Aboriginal. And I was like, oh, well, that's great because we've fulfilled the goal of 3%.
Yeah.
All our campuses now have a goal of mirroring the local community, and that's a really important. Again, our Aboriginal employment strategy didn't use a one size fits all. Our goals are dependent on the areas that they're in. So I don't expect areas with less than a 3% Aboriginal population to achieve that, but I expect areas with a large Aboriginal population to reach above and to exceed what was the norm before. So our initial goal here is 3.5%. We're currently at 2.81%. We have 419 Aboriginal staff out of 14,000. So it's growing, and that sense of we're not providing a free lunch or free jobs to people. It actually makes TAFE a better place by that. So I want people to feel, people who come with the Aboriginal lived experience are an asset, and they can be used in so many more ways than just being put in a corner and just come out when it's Aboriginal time. I know in all the jobs that I've had that incredible opportunity to work across so many widespread areas and have the opportunity to MC very large events and to host VIPs and other people, and that shouldn't be seen as the exception. If you've got the skills, that should be the rule, right? So I hope that's what people can see. And I guess the last thing is that it's about passion, right? My team, we have our mantra is people, purpose, passion. The thing that's always, a staff member of mine said to me last year, "You've done this for 40 years. How are you still so passionate?" I'm still so passionate because I see the opportunities for ongoing change. And these guys themselves, the team that I have, embedded me with a sense of purpose that part of my responsibility now is to pass those skills on. And that's what we do culturally, but we have to do it in a modern day setting where we're prepared to pass those skills on and not hold them back. Because if we hold it back, those experiences die with me, and it shouldn't die with me. We should be able to pass those on.
Yeah. Well, I want to say thank you for hanging with me and having a bit of a yarn. It was great to catch up with you. And
yeah, you too.
For people that don't know, I did meet you at that awarded ceremony because I was that person sitting in the seat when you arrived back from your award going, oh my God, we need this guy to come and talk to the university, because I was working at RMIT at the time.
Yeah.
And I was in your seat ready to go, hey, I need to talk to you. I need you to help with RMIT's Indigenous employment strategy and launch that we did that year. And I was just trying to think that's possibly 2007, I reckoned.
I think you're right.
2007 I reckon that was.
Yeah, look how good we look after all those years, AJ, eh?
I know. I'm mid-50s. as well. I think we're looking pretty good.
Yeah, I think we're doing all right, brother. I think we're doing all
Yeah,
right.
we are. So I want to say thank you for joining me. You know how much I love the work that you do. And
Yeah.
to guys, thanks for joining me on the podcast. And I'll see you guys soon. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you. Take care.